I move to approve the agenda for July 18th.
Second.
Moved and supported to approve the agenda. All in favor? Aye. Same, motion carries. Go to the first call of the public. Would anybody like to speak? And there's 2 calls of the public, which are members, so we'll have a chance at the end of the meeting also. All right. Well, with that, we will go into the regular meeting with the adoption of the proposed regular meeting minutes from last month.
I move to adopt the meeting minutes from June 20th, 2024.
Second.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Clerk's report.
I apologize. I have the Livingston County Sheriff's Department report, but I don't have it with me. So I will report next month on both July and August. I can tell you that the officer that I have worked with, Eric Sanborn, is retiring, and so I do have a new liaison. But I know him as well too. He's a firefighter on Howell's Fire Department and a sheriff deputy. So his name is Kendall. So I can tell you about that. And then the August primary, which is why I do not have that. The sheriff's has been, it is in full swing. I have received a great number of ballots back already, absentee ballots back. More so than I think ever before. I have received, at this point in the election process, I have received more ballots back than ever before. Still the same number-ish of ballots going out for a primary election, just impressed about the number I've received back. Not a ton of requests in addition to the permanent ballot list. I did send out the letter to the people who are on the permanent application list, and I probably, since I've sent ballots out, we've probably only received less than 20 of those back. People wishing to be on the permanent ballot list and receive ballots for this election. So I don't know if a mass number of them will come back for the November election, but there were hundreds.
Yeah,
Like 346 of those letters I sent out, and I probably only received back since the mass ballot distribution, only, I wouldn't say more than 20, 30, which I'm really surprised about, but maybe they'll all come back after the August primary. So, yes, so early voting starts next Saturday. So exciting.
When you say it like that.
So yes, so the schedule's already on that side of the door. It's on the website. Encouraging everyone, I want to maintain our winning streak of having the highest percentage voter turnout for early voting. So yes, please take advantage of early voting. We've got 10 whole days to vote now. And so let's use them all. So, I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Treasurer report.
Treasurer's report. So, summer tax bills went out. Seem to be, I haven't heard anything like yet of people not receiving their bills. So, the printer printed them in Pinckney, but then drove them to the Fowlerville post office. So everything should have went out to Grand Rapids. So hopefully everybody will receive their bill. I have the one CD that we had with the Bank of Ann Arbor did mature. I have renewed it for 260 days. I said if I did a year, they would give me a lower percentage of interest. So I don't know if the bank is worried that they don't want to pay that much a year out. So that was what I renewed it for. So in April, we'll have to figure out what we want to do next with that. That is my rented the hall 5 more times since our last meeting. Open house season has tapered off. The hall's rented this weekend, and then I think I have a couple random weekends to finish out the summer. And the tables and chairs just keep going out. They're getting well used this summer. So, thank you.
And pay the bills.
So I will make a motion that we pay $73,311.25 in township bills.
I'll second.
Moved and supported, pay the bills. Any discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
So the recreation bill is in there, and it is $13,202.95. I think might be the most it's ever been, but I just wanted to, that's why the bills, that and chloride are in there. So it is, I think it's close to $30,000 more than last month's bills, but you can see all of them there. So, yeah, the printing of the tax bills, I mean, you guys see them all there. The township, that township MTA renewal is on there. You know what? I apologize. This is not correct.
Hi. Where are you? I see Granger, I see.
No, the 20th, June 20th should not be on there. I'm sorry, I was so busy today that I did not check. My deputy printed this and I did not,
Who's got a calculator?
I do. So, I apologize. So I need to subtract $7,690.87. So those invoices that you see, the Econo Print, Livingston County Sheriff, and the MTA are all from last month, are on last month's. So
Gotcha.
60,026.84 minus 7690.87. That's going to equal $52,335.97 plus payroll, which is $13,284.41. So it's going to be a total of $65,620.38. Again, my utmost apologies.
You said 65, 620, 38 cents.
So it's going to be 65, 620, 38 if I did the math.
I just.
You did it?
I did it as well. I came up with the same $65,620.38.
Perfect. Okay. So I amend my motion to pay $65,620.38 in township bills. Please review that. See if there's anything that... It's not that those bills were overpaid, it's just that the total transaction accounts included a date that it shouldn't have
Right.
included.
You said you subtracted 76.90 and 87 cents?
Yes, from the $60,026.84. Those top three bills on the Iosco Township transaction by account are from the 20th, which was our board meeting day last.
We've already approved them.
Those were already paid last month, yep.
Can you double check it again?
I absolutely will.
I mean, I don't have my calculator, but the first number, if I look at 14 minus 7, it should be 7, right?
It was
Yeah.
7,690.87 cents.
take 84 cents minus 87 cents. Right, I have, cross out the 8, because 7, carry the 1, that's 14 minus 7. What am I doing wrong? That would be 7.
That's
Now,
right. So then,
Are you including?
oh, I thought she said you subtract 6, 7, 900.
so that equals $52,335.97.
Oh, okay,
Then
okay,
you
never
have
mind.
to add
Yep, yep, I didn't have.
That
13
is total of these.
to 84 equals 65,620.38.
Okay.
I'm positive.
Yeah, I didn't have the payroll.
Okay,
You're good.
perfect. I apologize again for that. So, once you had looked at, someone would be willing to second my amended
Of course,
motion?
I will amend my second.
Thank you.
Moved and supported. No more discussion, call the roll.
Daily, aye. Elderson?
Aye.
Parker? Hardee's?
Aye.
Monville?
Aye.
All right, on to Jason.
So there was not a recreation meeting this month. I came just to see if there were questions about the bill there. I thought that seemed high as well, but I couldn't remember what the breakdowns were from one half of the year to the other. But everything that they have talked about is that they expect to still be on budget, so I wasn't concerned about the number there. But the main thing I wanted to come up for is there was an email chain that kind of flew around. And so Greg sent out through final forms to all the parents that there were softball tryouts being held. And one of the reasons they were doing tryouts is they were starting a new league, so they're more competitive, but the fees for it were $1,000. And I hadn't even read it by the time my phone started blowing up, people coming back in. Bonnie from the township and Brandy from Conway were concerned about that, obviously, because they paid a portion of it. And we're asking where the decision came from, whether they could offer new things like that. And Greg said that, he said that it came from the softball board. They suggested that there be tryouts, that they could join another league. That if people wanted to, if there was enough interest, they would look into doing that. But the fees that they're going to be charging through the townships were going to be the same as what they did for the regular rec league, which means that, if the parents wanted to be the competitive one, they were shouldering that entire cost. And they were going to work on scholarships and fundraisers to be able to do that. So in my mind, we offer softball already. Like, I don't, there's the rec board or the rec department certainly had the authority to offer more softball. I think it was just somebody being new and Greg not knowing that that's the sort of thing to probably talk with us, because it does, kind of affect us in case, what if they do a travel team and there's not enough left for the other people, maybe there's some concern about that. It's just the fact I think that it hit us by surprise was the big concern. I don't think there was anything out of their authority and it's not going to be changing the budget, so I don't think it should matter in the long run. But I know, I just want to let you know that we did bring up some concerns with some of the members that this was a surprise to us and we didn't hear about it. So I think it's mostly ironed out. I know Bonnie does want to talk about who's making those decisions and what should be run by us, what shouldn't be run by us, that sort of thing ahead of time. So that's there. She had said there wouldn't need to be a meeting. I don't think that means a special meeting next month. I think that means put on the agenda for the next one, especially because it hasn't gone any further, but just wanted to let y'all know where that came from. Which at this point doesn't seem to be much, but there was some concern.
Thank you. Amanda, fire board.
Fire board. We had 13 calls into the township since our last meeting. 4 were medical emergencies, 2 were motor vehicle accidents with injuries. 1 was a motor vehicle accident with no injury. 2 power lines down, 3 no incident found upon arrival, and 1 severe weather or natural disaster. We have not had a meeting, we have one next week. So, thank you.
Thank you. Dan, Planning Commission.
Okay, a few things from the planning commission. First of all, of course, we discussed the, if I could, I'll discuss, this should be in front of everybody. In fact, I put out copies for everybody up on the table there for the public as well. This was a clarification that we received from Mark Idelson. I know that the board had kind of taken a position that it seemed logical for us to, the planning commission rather, to have an ordinance draft, send it to the county, and then the county would sort of resubmit it to the planning commission for review with their review notations before we formally recommended it or sent it to the board for approval or denial. And when we discussed that with Mark, he drew up this handy flow chart which kind of shows, as laid out by essentially the zoning and enabling acts, the flow of how this goes. And it's probably not in our best interest to kind of amend or modify this process, but it's just a helpful showing of how we have been doing it, which is the planning commission does their review after the whole process commences here. Once they are satisfied, they send it to the Livingston County Department of Planning. Department of Planning sends it to the board, and after the planning commission has sent it off to the Livingston County Department of Planning, it's recommended to the board for approval or denial at that time from the planning commission, and that draft then comes to the board after that. So just kind of reiterates that here, clarification for everybody. Thought it would be helpful to have everybody in on this. That being said, we I guess sent the Kennels back here to, I shouldn't say back here, but I guess back here to the board with recommendation to approve. We did the same for the large solar energy systems amendment, and this would be the May 22nd, 2024. You guys should have in front of you transmission from Mark here. And we discussed general idea of CREO, what it means, kind of got some opinions and just general discussion. And Tammy, the chairperson, had mentioned that, of course, the planning commission is sort of, I don't want to say in this subservient role, but kind of executing the will of the board, and just wanted to reemphasize that if the board wants to make a certain move or would like something, that it be kind of formally, written to the planning commission, just pass it along. And am I forgetting anything?
I don't think so.
I think that's about what we had for these. Any questions?
So, again, I mean, the reason why we had originally questioned, the process that's in the Enabling Act, honestly, is because when we get feedback from the board or from the county, I mean, it comes right to the board. The planning commission is really the one most up to speed and knowledgeable about what they've drafted. So personally, I still think it's appropriate that you guys review it. So if we're going to stick with this process, then I guess what I'm understanding or surmising from what he's saying is that step 7, or I should say between step 6 and step 7, we would just refer it back to the planning commission for additional review.
Like a 7A,
Like
7A and 7B. So 7A would be refer
Well,
It'd be
that's
6A.
even like a
Yeah,
6,
6A.
6A.
Well, 6A is county advisory review, so 7 is township board take action, right? So the action that we're gonna
Where-
take is to
wait.
send it back to the,
Well, okay, I think however you want to do it, I
Yeah.
mean, but 7 is calling it approval or denial. And we want to do it before we approve or deny it.
right.
So that's why I was
yeah,
putting
I guess
between
it's
6 and
semantics.
7.
7A would be send it back to planning commission to review, county comments. 7B would be take the action. Because they're both actions by the township board, right?
Correct, and then
They are.
rather than this be a policy, it could be a, you know, we're not every month sending something here for review, so it can be an at discretion or as needed basis where, you know, it comes back and you can refer it back to the planning commission.
Yeah, technically, there'd be a case where the county has no comment, in which case we wouldn't need to send it back. So, okay. So I guess that,
As needed.
I don't know if that's something, should we write a procedure for that, or should we just leave it as, okay, this is the way we're gonna handle it, it's kind of like an informal.
Well, I think, don't we, I mean, regardless, we have to follow this. This is not Mark's suggestion, this is what the zoning enabling act requires.
Zoning
Right.
and planning.
So,
Right, and we would be following this. It's just we would be inserting
Amending
in
it.
between 7 and 8 an additional, or between 6 and 7, and we look at it, additional review. So,
I think it's okay to leave it, when we see fit, we can send it back to the.
As needed.
all right. We just need to make note, and when it comes in, that we make that decision intentionally,
Yeah.
as it were. All right, thank you, Dan. Yeah.
I have issued 27 permits so far this year. Of those 27 permits, 7 of them are for new dwellings. In addition, I've also issued 19 waivers. I do not have an update on the 2 complaints tonight, but I do want to let the board know that the ZBA meeting on July 10th, the variance for the side setback was approved.
That's it?
That's it.
Nice, all right. On to unfinished business, Amanda, special assessment.
Special assessment districts. So I communicated with Mr. Harris our 2 main questions about special assessment districts. I forwarded that to everybody. His answer to the question of can the board set a 60% threshold versus 50, and he said yes, we could. The board legally isn't under any obligation to approve special assessment district at all, is what it sounds like. So if we would feel more comfortable if 60% of the parcels were on the petition, I think that's a good place to be, to show there really is a large enough majority to then push forward with the rest of the steps for the first SAD. Out here, I don't personally feel we should do this by road frontage. I can see where in the big cities, they would, sidewalks and things like that, they would do by road frontage. I feel like for us, parcel would be better to do the cost of the SAD by parcel. My only one thing that I did read is that Mr. Harris mentioned is some townships do not include vacant parcels in an SAD if it's for a road. They can add it into the SAD later if it's built on. But then that parcel would also not get a vote, I don't think. It would not count if you're not helping pay for it, then you probably shouldn't have a vote in it. But if you are, I do know, on some of our private roads, like somebody might own 3 parcels and 2 of them are vacant, and they may never build on them. Or the kids grow up and then they want to build on them, so that's something we need to think about if we're just gonna do a straight, okay, every parcel gets a vote, but every parcel's gonna pay as well. Way of figuring this out. He did comment that there's nothing wrong with us adopting Hamburg's township process, since they've been using it for a long time. He also recommended that I look at Brighton Township, that they too have had SADs for a long time.
In Cedar River Estates, roughly, what would be the percentage of parcels that are built on?
Oh, there's 30, I think there was 33 parcels, and how many are built on? I have to go grab my stuff for
More
that.
than half?
Oh, it's more than half, yeah.
I just thinking how other people would see that.
I know there is one owner that owns 3 parcels, and then there's a couple owners that don't have homes at all. They're just investment parcels, or, they thought they were gonna build and then didn't.
Right.
There's maybe a handful of owners that don't live there.
I can kind of see it both ways, right? It makes sense that people using it would be paying. But then,
But
on
if
the
you
flip
have a-
side, if you go to build a house, all of a sudden, you've got not more taxes, that it's like, wait, how'd that happen? I didn't vote for that.
Right.
So it's kind of,
Well, that and you're increasing the marketability of that vacant land by improving the road.
Right, that would be
That's
the
true.
other point,
So
yes.
I don't totally agree with the vacant landowners getting away with nothing.
right, or maybe do a partial, or,
I don't
That's
know.
not.
Some of the, my guess would be the owners of multiple parcels would prefer to have multiple votes. But that's just my feeling.
Okay.
That's just based on my personal feeling
what
that,
you've heard so far.
Well, I think we're adopting these just in general, but I did have the gentleman that does the vast majority of the road maintenance at Cedar River Estates come in and talk to me on a Wednesday, and he is very against it.
right, no.
So he plans on lobbying against having a special assessment district. He says, I'm the one that does all the work. I don't want this. He wants to keep it how it is. So he planned on going door to door and trying to convince people to not adopt a special assessment for Cedar River Estates. We have other, I'm not saying, I just want you to, before we consider everything based on Cedar River Estates, I just wanted you to know that there is somebody lobbying against it.
Right, I think you're always gonna, that's why we wanna do 60%, because
Yeah.
I think you're almost always gonna have people who don't want it.
Yeah,
And,
right.
there was another private road years ago that everybody in front wanted it, but the people in back didn't want it, oddly enough, and it would have benefited them the most, but they didn't want it, so. You know what road I'm talking about, you remember that, yeah, so that's why we do 60%, and, we would prepare the petition, so that the petition is very clear on what it's paying for and what it is for. And they have to have a map, and they have to have it very clearly stated, and it's a pretty formal. Right. And then if somebody does sign it, they do have a chance to back out. They decide if they change their mind later.
I think the 60% is appropriate personally. That we definitely over 50%.
Yes. Well, for simplicity's sake, do we want to just go all parcels in, all parcels get a vote? And, you know, we may never use this, but, you know, we might, and we may find something else works a little better, and we can tweak it later, but
Yeah, no,
for
if
now,
you put it in the work now, I think we should just see this through now. So we have it on the books. If we never need it, awesome. If we do,
then we'll have
then,
it.
yeah. just put the work in now. I'm okay with parcels, all parcels get a vote, all parcels have to pay.
Okay. All right, well, I emailed you where I went through and changed
Yep.
everything, so, would we like to approve this SAD process? I would make a motion that we approve this SAD process for the township, should we ever need it.
I'll support that.
Moved and supported to approve the draft SAD process that we have to put together. Any further discussion?
Oh, I did change coordinator and everything, I don't know if you saw, I changed coordinator to treasurer,
Yep, I saw that.
since we don't have a special assessment district coordinator.
Do you want another title?
I did not, no, I think we'll just tuck it under treasurer and call it a day.
Although sad coordinator sounds kind of like.
Sad coordinator, yeah, sad coordinator. No.
Then all those in favor of that slight modification? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries.
All right, I'll print out a nice and put it on the website and all that good stuff.
And on to CREO discussion. I guess last month we talked about where we go from here, and there was no decision made as to whether we would have a CREO or a modified CREO, if you will. And I guess I'd like to bring that up again. I don't know, DTE actually brought in a bunch of information in the last week with regards to their thoughts on working with our township. And in essence, I think, other than discussing like the details of what they have in here, the gist of the thing is that we're in the same predicament, right? We've got a state that says if you don't have a CREO, that a developer can go right to the MPSC and ignore the township, and the MPSC will approve or not approve. I mean, it's their choice, frankly, at that point to review plans and do what they will. We have the option of having a CREO per the state requirements, which is not very limiting compared to the ordinances that we've had drafted. We have the option of having a CREO with modifications, which there's the thought that because the modifications are things that were not covered within the state acts, I guess, the public acts, that for whatever reason, those would make it through as not more restrictive than the state act. Obviously, that's something that'll be tested in court, because one side's going to say, well, it is more restrictive, and the other side's going to say it isn't. So, I mean, as a board, I guess I think it's up to us to make a decision on which one of those avenues we're going to take. should go over there, and I know you guys can't vote, but honestly, I
I
guess,
still think that they can voice enough.
I agree, I have no
think that
issue with
they
hearing
should have
their
input.
opinions.
I'm willing, I want to hear their input, I guess, even though they're not voting.
All right, so I guess, is there anybody that has any additional thoughts? I know, I made my thoughts pretty clear last month on what I would like, or I can repeat them if you guys don't, but I guess I'd rather,
I'll throw out my train of thought at this current time, which is I'm not quite ready to embrace a CREO, as this is all still extremely new. The public acts are quite vague, as has been stated by people who are extremely knowledgeable on this subject. I've heard the argument that it's possible to do a CREO with other limitations, other things, say an overlay, whatever the case might be. Because it's not expressly noted in the public act, however, some might say that it's not the intent of the act itself, and it can easily change at any time. Due to the volatile nature of this and the fact that everything is so new, and likely to change, and likely to be litigated ad nauseam, I don't think I'm ready to embrace adopting a CREO like this.
and I think Julie, you're still that feeling also?
Yeah, I guess after reading through so many different things and avenues, I feel like I'm as formed as I can be at this point with all of this, like Dan mentioned it being so new. And just in light of all the information that I've been given, I support adopting the ordinance we've been working on. And I'm not saying that, I don't want to just drop it. I don't want to drop this topic. I mean, we can still discuss it, and I know time is of the essence, but maybe time's really not of the essence either. I truly believe that the MPSC is going to be has no idea what they're going to do. Like, I truly believe that. And so I don't think that the MPSC is going to be going through any applications in a timely manner. So I think, one, that gives us time. I think that there's going to be litigation, and so I think that gives us time. So I don't feel the pressure of we have to do this right now that maybe some people do, because I do believe those two things, that I don't think there's any part of this that's going to happen in any kind of timely manner, and I could be wrong, but I don't feel that pressure. I don't think that the MPSC is going to move quickly, and I do think there's going to be litigation, which could put a hold on all of it as well. And so I think we have time to be really thoughtful about this and decide what we want.
To the point, it may not be prudent to be expedient about this. Something will get lost.
Right.
So,
Well then,
I don't want to say that just to drop it. I just want to make sure that we keep it under old business, and we're talking about what comes to light and still thinking about it. And as information becomes available, do we want to, I don't want to take it off the table of doing a CREO, but I don't think that I really want to see where this goes, and I don't think it's going to be timely. And so I don't feel an urgency, I guess, to do a CREO. I don't even like the idea of a CREO, to be honest, because I don't agree with the whole, I don't agree with it, so, with the restrictions, so.
well, that would bring us to, I guess, another aspect of it then, because at least at this point in time, we don't have anything that takes effect come November.
It's on the agenda though.
So if we don't have system in place, or if we have an ordinance that is deemed non-workable,
Not compatible.
yeah, well, more than that, I mean, not workable to somebody who wants to apply,
I see what you're saying.
right? If we have an
Yeah.
ordinance like that, then come November, we don't have a CREO, it's just gonna go to the MPSC,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And everything's out of our hands at that point.
So you think
So
that.
what happens in that, and even if it's litigated, unless, there's this hope that there's a stay put on things that doesn't go up to a higher court and get turned over, which, if it gets a stay, it's gonna go to the next level of judges. It's not gonna be at a local level, or a lower level, I should say, the final decision is made. You're buying time, agreed, but I guess it's the risk you're taking. I mean, we could lose all control of this if it plays out not the way people are hoping it's gonna play out. So, I don't know. My personal feeling is that the modified CREO is kind of wishful thinking. It goes against all the premises that ordinance are based on. I mean, we have ordinance that are drafted that allow uses. We don't have ordinance that are drafted that say, if the use isn't called out, then you can do it if you feel like it, right? So it's kind of like when you have an ordinance that has restrictions, just because they don't list some other, I don't want to say use the word necessary, arbitrary, but other, type of a restriction, doesn't mean that restriction, or non-restriction in this case, I guess, would be permitted. And I would be shocked if the final decision of a court would be in favor of saying that, yes, that addition to your CREO is legitimate, because they're kind of circumventing the whole purpose of zoning. I just don't see it working.
And when you speak of that, just to be clear, you mean adding an overlay to a CREO?
Right.
Right.
Or anything else.
Yeah, but,
Any other?
But in this case, right, the overlay seems
Right.
to be the,
right.
so, and one of the things that comes up to me is from past experience in this township. In this township, we have an injection well, which came about because, in this case, it was Dart Energy. They came in, they wanted to develop an abandoned oil well for brine removal, for use on roads, chloride. We had our special, meeting and all that kind of stuff, notified the neighbors. The community had a fit, of course, I can't say I blame them necessarily, but the DART laid it out very clearly that, the options were, they weren't gonna close the well, they were gonna use it for brine, and they were willing to put in screening and fix the site up and, all that kind of stuff. They were working with us as, a special use type of an application. And, they were very clear, they worked with us on that. If they couldn't use it for that, though, that it was gonna turn into an injection well. And none of that other stuff would go with it, right? And the peoples who were most affected from it said, we'll take our chances. And the board, in my opinion, probably stupidly, said, fine, you were the ones who want it, we'll let it go. And yeah, we have an injection well that looks like crap around the neighbors and all that kind of stuff. It was just the wrong decision. And I just feel that, I just see that happening again. So that's
So
my background in life.
No, and I hear you. So explain to me what you think we should do. Because we talk about all those different options. There's so many different options, and so remind me what one you think is the right thing to do.
I think that we should, at this point in time, have a CREO. So like I said at the last meeting, I don't believe we should give up a seat at the table. Without a CREO, we have no recourse to even go in and voice our opinion or objections at the MPSC. Again, we don't know how open-eared they're going to be. I would hope that the reason why they're allowing us to come in and speak with them is that they will listen to us. We know our community; they don't. So if we're unreasonable, I would expect them to ignore us, right? If we're reasonable, I would hope that they're like reasonable people. I mean, I guess that's my thought. So I would go with a straight CREO, and I would also, I mean, I know everyone's going to say I'm in cahoots with DTE, but we also have somebody who's come in that is willing to work with us, has told us exactly what they would do for us under the premise of even if we had a CREO, they would do these things, right? Which we would want. I mean, the things we would want. Not every one of them, but the vast majority of them, right? That would impact the community. So, yeah, my feeling is also if that ends up being developed, I think we also have an ear at the MPSC that, hey, we've got way more energy being developed here than we need. You know, we don't have other parcels in our township, and we've got data to show it that are appropriate for development. Look elsewhere, right? So that's where I would stand.
So what do you, and I know it's later in the meeting, but what are you proposing that we do then with the ordinance that it's in front of us, that's on the? I would say it needs to be relooked at to what somebody who wants to develop something says is reasonable with respect to what we have. Match them up, which actually, they actually presented us with a document that shows that. Put it out there and have that be the thing we actually review and say, okay, do you want to take your chances on this? Or do you want to take your chances on us having whatever the MPSC decides they're going to allow a developer to do? But is that a CREO? I don't think that what they presented us was a CREO, is it?
No, it is not a CREO.
But you just said you wanted a CREO, but then you said you wanted to do this. So they're not, both of those are not aligned.
They are not. The Public Act does not require somebody to use a CREO.
Right, but you just said you wanted a CREO.
Yeah, I want a CREO. I still would say it's important for us to have a CREO because of if somebody else is gonna.
Can we have both?
That's a good point. I guess you can't really.
Because what you're speaking of would be the modification of our amendment ordinance draft by a developer versus something that would pass as a CREO. Because presumably, and I haven't exhaustively looked through this, this would be defined as a workable ordinance by a developer, by this particular developer, and not necessarily a CREO or something that is, will pass for a CREO. It just might be workable by this specific developer.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it's exactly.
Yeah, so you're right. You're right. In that case, if we were going to go that avenue, we would not want to recruit. Right. It's kind of wonderful.
Mr. Hardee's, Do you have any comments?
I'll let you put it that way. It's one or the other, I don't know. Is the seat valuable? Is it?
I don't know, and this is all brand new.
I mean,
But at least,
the thing with having a CREO, yeah, I guess you really can't have both, can you? I guess if we had a CREO, it would be the part where if anybody else came in, we'd still have a seat going to the MPSC. Again, I'm kind of thinking out loud here.
I hear what you're saying there.
If we went with the ordinance aspect, we'd be saying, we know that DTE is going to come in and use this ordinance because they've already said that with what they marked up, they'd be fine. So one would, I guess it's bird in the hand versus bird in the bush type of thing almost, right? I mean, we don't know what's going to happen with the MPSC. So if we had an ordinance, thinking out loud still, if we had an ordinance that was allowed something to come in, and the developer, in this case, I mean, we're obviously talking about DTE, came in and built something, anybody else, if you will, coming in, their only option would be go directly to the MPSC. Well, not really.
Well, they could choose.
They could choose to use our ordinance still,
Also.
yes. It's just that we could turn it down. I mean, we don't have to approve it. In which case, then.
None of them do we have to approve. Even if we did this, even if we adopted this, we still don't have to approve it.
That's true too, but then obviously people are going to go to the MPSC.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if we did not approve it with a CREO, then from my understanding, we lose essentially the right to have a CREO or call our ordinance CREO if we were to reject a site plan once a CREO is in place.
Correct.
And our CREO would not mean anything if Unadilla does not adopt a CREO, because this project
That's a very
is
good point.
partially in Unadilla. So both jurisdictions have to have a CREO in order for us to have a CREO.
I mean, yeah, if they continue a plan in both places, I guess.
Well, I think it is, I think it's not in both, it's only in Iosco.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I don't want to interrupt your conversation.
Yeah.
The new stuff that did come out about how if one place did have a CREO, then it could be separated out versus if one township did have one and one township didn't, even if the project crosses
Jurisdictional
township
line.
territory line, you could still work with one community and have to deal with
The MPSC for the other, for one project.
it. I mean,
For a common brother.
I mean, and please, I'm not an expert in this, but that is some of the new stuff that we've just heard, don't know, because that is a question, of course, for DTE, because we do other projects across county lines.
Yeah, because the letter we received from Mark said that, and obviously this is new information, but the information from Mark, our planner said that if the rules were written as of July 1st, that both jurisdictions, or it didn't matter. So this must be newer than July 1st.
This was a call that I was on last week. But again, please don't look into it further. They were talking about it, it came up, the people, they call it staff, I guess, at MPSC, commented on the fact that that the way that I understood it was that it's not, if one community has it, then you can work with that community. If the other doesn't, then you have to work with the MPSC for the other.
I'm not saying that's, so I can't sit here and tell you that that's been 100% determined, but that's what people realized they were gonna have to do, because there would be some townships that want to put in a CREO, and it's not fair to the other township. If one has a CREO and one doesn't, it's not fair to the other township to have to deal with that, so.
Yeah, that's, I
You
can't even
double check.
imagine
You
how
please.
on one project, like one contiguous project, they would deal with the MPSC
Well,
for.
so when you build a
part of
project,
that
we-
project?
yeah, when we build a project, we still have to cite, we have two applications. We have one for one township, one for the other. Anything that we would do in one township has no impact on what we would do in another. So that's why. So you would
Okay.
not, you would not have any components of another township's information in your application.
Gotcha.
That's why I think people didn't realize that when they were, we have to submit two
Obviously, it's
applications
messier for
anyway.
them,
Yeah.
but would not affect us.
Gotcha. So, Mr. Harvey, do you have anything? It's not okay for me to have that answer, so how is it okay for you to have that answer?
This is just a shit show.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just, yeah, you could play this a million ways. But there's an awful lot of lawyers up in Lansing, and there's an awful lot of lawyers all over the state looking to make money on this. And I guess, I don't know if having a seat at the table makes us have more control over it versus having our own ordinance and making it workable.
We don't know.
We don't, and it's gonna change, it's changed every month since this started, I feel like. I feel like a lot of these loopholes are gonna get closed up.
I don't really feel that there's any loopholes. I mean,
You just feel like there's a thought that there's,
yeah, because, I mean, the MPSC, as I understand it, I mean, they have control if a developer wants to go to them. I mean, and because the township won't work with them, right? But, I mean, that kind of is the loophole for the developer, right? It's not a loophole for us.
right, if I'm the
It's-
developer and
it's-
I don't like what the township's saying, I just
Go to
run
the
to the
MPSC.
state.
So it's kind of like, I mean, the township has a choice of either working to try to get something that they can live with and agreeable, or take your gamble on what the MPSC is going to give you. Or take your gamble on that you're going to actually turn over a Michigan's law that the government wants, which I don't think it's going to happen.
Not in 2 years, not
So-
in the next 2 years, it doesn't.
But, right, and it could be, say, we're kicking the can down the road, but once we made that decision to go that way, it's done. I mean, if that court case is lost, whether it be next year, 2 years, 3 years, you still have zero control.
Right.
So to me, I don't think it's worth that risk. I would rather have control of what we're doing.
What control do you think, what do you mean by that, what control?
The control of us having an ordinance that we can put together that somebody will work with without going to the MPSC.
So not a
So again,
CREO?
not a CREO, but a workable ordinance.
Workable ordinance.
Okay.
The CREO is the alternative. I mean, it's one or the other. But yeah, I mean, the workable ordinance to me that's a sure thing. This other thing,
For CREO, you're gambling if your voice will be heard at the.
you are,
Yeah.
you are. They say it will. I mean,
I just always go back to the county commissioners meeting when we were trying to get the ARPA funds for broadband here. Like, I think about that in reference to this, and it could be totally different, but our local county commissioners could care less what the townships wanted and what we believed was best for they could have cared less, you know what I mean? And so I don't think the MPC is gonna care less what we think if our own county commissioners don't care what
Right,
we
if
think.
one level up doesn't care,
Yeah.
it's a
I
couple more.
don't see that. I don't,
Really?
I don't equate it. Yeah, the county was looking to have that money for their own use. Totally different. I mean, the MPSC is controlling a development process. They're not getting anything out of it. The county took that money that could have helped develop the local fiber to build this goofy fiber ring that they thought was gonna save the county,
Which is exactly.
which was just a joke and a waste of $12 million.
Amen. Amen.
So, I don't
So
see
do
them
you
as,
think the
comparable.
MPSC is good? You don't?
MPSC doesn't have any skin in the game. They're not
I don't know if I
gaining
agree with
anything from
that.
this.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with
I
that either.
get it, I get
Okay.
what you're saying. I don't know.
Do you think they're comparable?
I don't think you're understanding Julie's, we go to the county and say, we need money for fiber. And the county says, well, even though you're this big a part of us, yeah, no, sorry, we're gonna use the money for something else. We go up to the state and we say, hey, we've got enough solar and whatever, and the state goes, well, you're this little teeny tiny part of us. We don't care. We got other agendas. We got lobbyists. We got this. We got that. We got to have more solar because our governor wants to go to the federal level. That's, I think, what Julia's trying to say.
Yeah.
Is that we're an even smaller cog in the works.
Okay.
Is, I think, where she was going.
So I can say that, I believe by looking through all this information, this is just information, that it appears that there's only of the overlay, and please correct me if you've read this differently than I have, but of the overlay area that we have proposed in,
Roughly 990 acres.
yes, the 990 acres, only just over 320 acres of that is usable for solar.
Roughly 365.
365, okay, about 365 acres of that, of the 990 is usable for solar.
That's what this map says, yeah.
Yeah.
Total buildable acreage.
And that is taking into account water setbacks, property setback, structures, and I think those three are after.
Now, granted, looking at this, for example, this is, well, there's really not any structures in that overlay anyway to speak of. But this is based on a structure setback of 500 feet, not 300 feet. So, but if you look at the map, they're really, the overlay district doesn't have many structures other than in that top section. So it really, even if you change that to 300, it's not going to change that acres much. We have another 3 or 4 acres, 5 acres maybe. I know everyone hasn't had a chance to read all this stuff. You know, I don't know if we want to, I mean, I don't see us making a decision tonight based on the way this conversation has been going. But the idea is we got to talk about it.
Right, oh, yeah.
I mean, do you want to take the opportunity of this month to go through this information? And then, you know, at our next meeting, actually, I guess we need to formalize some decision, right? And make a motion to do something, even if it gets turned down, I guess.
What do you guys think about having someone besides us review this? And when I say someone of more authority than we have, or knowledge, or whatever, the changes that DTE is willing to abide by.
That's what I was glancing through, so.
And maybe it is planning commission, I don't want to send it to planning, I mean, maybe we have to send it to planning commission, I
I
don't know.
think it's totally appropriate for the
Yeah.
planning commission to look at it.
Okay.
Personally. Because the bottom line is the planning commission can look at it and see what they think. I mean, as far as the changes, because the ultimate decision is really going to be, you know, where do we want to put our poker chips on, right? I mean, it's one of those things where,
The bottom line here, Joe, is that you're welcome to send this back to PC, but they're just gonna throw their arms up and say, what do you want us to do? Because we need a direction in this. We can review this until the cows come home. But unless we have a direction on which way we want to go with it, I don't know what good it's gonna do us, just being quite honest with you.
No, I appreciate frankness.
I have no issue with that. Yeah, if you don't think it'd be worth the effort, then it's going to be the board's decision.
I'm not saying it's not worth the effort, I'm just saying it's direction needs to be given to the PC explicitly. Okay, review this and consider, you know, whether it be, review this and consider working this into the amendment ordinance draft, or review this and perhaps review it with the master planner or with legal counsel and authorize us the funds in which to do so, whatever the case might be. We need some serious direction in this.
What are your thoughts? Because you have you have a vast amount of experience with this ordinance, and what do you think? What do you think we should do?
I am extremely torn, guys, because I can understand all of these arguments. I'm extremely frustrated as a conservative person in every sense of the word that we've spent so much time, effort, energy, money, resources on drafting what we felt was a very good and promising amendment ordinance draft. And at this point, it seems like it's not going to do us any good. My gut instinct would be, since it is a living document, the draft that we have gone through and created and presented to the board tonight, again, just talking this out, if we were to approve or deny that, just do something with that tonight. First of all, if we were to approve it and put it in place, I I'd like to highlight the fact that the zoning ordinance is a living document, so if we'd like to change that, we can. And some might argue that, okay, well, if you're gonna do something with, this new stuff and work that into your draft, well, that's substantive changes and it will be subject to a public hearing, and other review as well. So I don't know that it's like a better option for us if we wanted to try to redo all this and pack it into what we currently have. We're gonna have to review it, we're gonna have to re-public hear it, and we're gonna have to do all these steps again anyhow. So my gut feeling right now is it's best probably to act on what's before us, and then should we want to change the direction of the vote and do a course correction right now, we can. And kind of start from scratch as we almost would anyhow. I would love to have a say in what happens in our township. The line is so fine, guys. I know that you empathize with us up here because I don't want to tell somebody who wants this that they can't do it on their land, because if it's your land, it's your land. I get it, within reason, of course. But again, I still don't know if I'm ready to do a CREO, personally. Although the brief reading I just did on what would be considered to be a workable ordinance by one specific developer seems somewhat reasonable, and would give us a chance to have some say in this matter if it were in the township. So to sum it up, my recommendation would be to deal with what's before us. If we'd like to change that course, we can. And it's going to cost us in money and resources roughly the same as it would if we were to not do that and modify what we've already spent so much money and resources on.
Yes, I agree with that. I mean, the approval process is not the process.
Is there any rebuttal discussion on that?
It's just a matter of the same thing. We'll enter into November with the ordinance in place.
Should we?
You're basically, regardless of whether it's a quote-unquote workable ordinance or one that a developer doesn't think of as workable, it's still an ordinance versus a CREO. Right?
Yes.
Is what we're saying,
Yes.
which means come November, people will look at our ordinance and say, I can do this, great, I'll work with you, or I can't do this, I'm going to the MPSC.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
And realistically though, looking at the map, I don't know how many other, I don't know.
Where else is it gonna go? Is that
Where
what
else
you're
is it
thinking?
gonna go, is what I'm thinking. Thank you for summing that up. Again, could be wrong, just a thought, but I understand you're wanting to preserve this in the future, but I don't know, I can see that whole list too.
I feel like I need more information about what happens come November. Like, I need someone to tell me, like, even if it goes into litigation, even if they do, if we are able to obtain a stay on Public Act 233, is it gonna mean, like, if we didn't have everything figured out by November, does that mean we automatically have to go to the MPSC? Like,
I mean, that's the
That's
way
what
it's written now.
I know we can't have a moratorium, but so everything has to be decided by November, we're sure that that's what 233 says? That we have to have everything figured out by
I can look at
November?
it and reread it, but yeah, my understanding is if you don't have a CREO in place when it goes into effect, you don't have a CREO.
Ever.
That's my question, is can this be opted into after the November deadline? That's my question.
I have to reread it. I didn't think it was possible, but I wouldn't go to the bank with that comment until I reread it.
And to me, all of this sounds so tentative. Because what is different than what was.
Right, yes, exactly. If it's changing all the time, how can they say we have to have a definitive answer by then and then still change the rules? They're changing the rules to the game all the time, you know what I mean? But we have to make a definitive decision about this game when we don't, all the rules aren't set, really, you know?
Well, I don't know if they feel that way.
I don't know that they do either, but
They might
that's how
feel
I
that the
feel.
rules are set.
Oh, well,
That's pretty fine detail. I mean, that's really not a rule impacting the actual development of the thing, right? All that is defining whether or not it can cross a township line. If it can't cross a township line, it's still just developed in one township versus the other. I mean, I don't think that's I don't see that as what we would think of as the rules changing personally, but because it doesn't impact our township. If they were changing, you know, the actual specifications or whatever, cutting, setbacks in half or, all that kind of stuff, that's obviously the rules changing. Or saying, no, you don't have any chance of having input to the MPSC, that's obviously be a huge change.
so this is what's coming to mind, and this is just discussion still, not a motion.
Right.
I would like a month, like you suggested, to look into this more, but I might be suggesting, not making a motion yet, that we allot some money in order to do some investigation into this. Because I don't think any of us have a clear enough understanding to know without a doubt. And I don't know that the lawyers do either, to be perfectly honest. I really don't. I think that some of this is just as much of a guessing game for them as it is for us, but
If they knew, the other side would say, oh yeah, you win, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole purpose of a court battle, is to determine who's gonna win. So no, you're right, the lawyers don't know.
no, I don't know what to do.
They just
I don't feel like I have, I've done my best to be as informed as I can be, and I feel like I need guidance from somebody who has more answers. There's so many questions, and I don't know who the expert is, but I need
Julie, I'd be in agreement with what you're saying. Not only have we heard it from Mark Idelson, who suggested on a few occasions that before he renders any opinion on it, that it would be good to seek legal counsel. We've heard it from informed members of our public as well. I think it would probably be prudent for for us to allot at least a small sum and ask some general questions to others.
Thank you. So I guess that I will make a motion that we continue our research and discovery of I don't want to say CREO, because that's not what I mean necessarily, into Public Act 233, right? Into navigating Public Act 233. And I would make a motion that we spend no more than I think that's even excessive, $500? Does that seem excessive?
I'm not sure the hourly rate, but I would assume that would be reasonable.
I get to,
I would say, my thought, I can approve $1,000.
Oh,
Let's determine who we would be using to do this with, and just do that. If that's what it's gonna take.
did you have something?
I guess, so you're using this money to ask them questions?
Yeah,
Like
just
to-
for
to
paying
buy
for
some
attorney.
time?
5 times.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted clarification.
Yeah, just to, for
More
attorney
so-
fees for asking questions. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, no, sorry. It's buying time, we're just, I think, getting,
Right, like you would, like an,
I mean, a lot
X
of this
amount
could
of
be
hours.
free. I mean, honestly, right? We could be calling our legislatures.
oh, I see, what you mean. I'm sorry.
So it's more than just finding an attorney.
Right, I don't even know if an attorney is the expert in this, to be perfectly honest. I would
Just
love to
depends on
find
which side
somebody.
you're on,
Yeah,
Right?
I would love to speak. Maybe, I mean, I actually have, I think, Lana Tice's cell phone number, so I'm willing to try Lana, but, I mean, in the past, she hasn't always had the answers.
They can't see the future either.
Say what will answer the question is November.
I know, but what if it's too late?
I mean, according to the act.
You,
No, speak.
the ordinance now that you're wanting to approve, we're concerned that that's not workable with.
Now, are we not, I would say concerned, we are aware that it is not.
Yes.
We have been told that by a specific developer.
So,
So, do you want this as a formal motion? How do we want to proceed?
I mean, Joe's right, he's got $1,000 to spend.
It's
so.
This was just a CREO discussion.
We'll
Yeah, okay, I'm
discuss.
fine with that.
and you're willing to talk to Lana?
Oh, yeah, I will, I will
Whoever
make that
you-
happen. I can't guarantee she's gonna have any answers, but I will speak with Lana.
Pick their brain?
Yes.
I would too.
And who, she was the clerk in Brighton City. She is, yes, Ann Boland. She's, I could try and talk to her as well, because she knows anything through Ann Boland. And this is. That's what I'm comfortable with right
Okay. I guess we'll wrap that discussion up then and move on to new business. Oh, section 1319, solar energy systems, what?
now. Just when you thought.
Here we are.
Do we have anything more to say?
Well, my question is, with the discussion we just had, are we looking to table this, or are we wanting to go ahead and move forward?
I mean, I don't know that there's a benefit to approve it this month versus next month.
So you want to table it?
I mean, yeah, that's what I would propose. If we're gonna talk, then and we should come back and discuss, you know, which way we're gonna go. CREO versus ordinance, which is kind of what this decision will be, right, over this next month. Then why don't we just table it the next month and
1 month table, I believe I'm comfortable with that regarding the special use and the information that we're going to seek. Did you motion for that?
We might as well.
might as well.
Okay, I will move to table section 13.119, solar energy systems for 1 month.
I'll second it.
Moved and supported to table solar energy systems 1319 to the August meeting. All in favor?
Aye. Okay,
and on to an easier topic.
I don't know, this looks pretty contentious.
Article 21, regarding kennels.
Yeah, this is back from the Queens County Department of Planning and the Planning Commission again. And after much rigmarole, we're pretty comfortable with where it is and we recommend approval by the board.
I will make a motion that we adopt Article 21 regarding kennels, Table 3.2, and Article 3.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded to approve the draft ordinance updates. Any discussion? I guess my only question is, so did you adopt the board's comment or the county's comments? Or are you recommending those?
Actually, that's a very good question. We did not make any amendments after receiving this from the Department of Planning, so
Okay.
we chose not to. And the reason for that, and correct me if I'm wrong here, there's a lot of discussion on this. The reason this started to begin with was there was, seemed to be some confusion by one of the animal control officers on our ordinance and how it ties into kennels versus personal dogs sort of thing. But we couldn't quite get an answer as to why it wasn't clear, and after comparing it to the Lewis County ordinance, it seemed fairly comparable, so we made some tweaks, and this is kind of where we're at. And does that sum it up fairly well?
Yes, the deputy unfortunately was very hard to work with in getting a straight answer out of. And then I also believe, I don't have all my packet with me, I also believe the county was referring to an old ordinance of the counties, because I believe the current animal control ordinance was from 2020.
Oh,
So we did our best to align ourselves with the county
okay.
and what we felt worked for our township at this time.
Okay.
Thanks, Ann.
Yep.
Thank you. All right. Again, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Thank you, Ann. Okay. Board member comments. John?
none at this time.
Dan? Julie?
I just forgot to mention that I did the public accuracy test today, and that I had people show up, and it was like a civic lesson for a homeschool student, and I thought that it went really well, and the parent learned a ton too.
Is that why she came, just to witness it?
Yes,
Okay.
yep, she came specifically for the public accuracy test as a civic lesson for her homeschool child, and I just,
Cool.
I think that went really, really well, so I meant to mention that,
Yeah, he enjoyed it.
yeah.
All right.
I forgot to put it on the agenda, and I will ask that it goes on next month's agenda about, I did have the inquiry about someone wanting to use the hall to teach a class, and that if we might charge differently for that. I know I brought it up last month, I think. But then, I'm sorry, I forgot for this one to hit you guys up for your opinions again. So put it back in the thought bank and let me, and I'm gonna ask that it go on the agenda for next month. If it's something we're interested in doing or not, or just leave it at the 75.
You know, I have no comments. I'm sure the public is probably gonna let us know what they think of our discussion tonight. So if you have thoughts as to why one versus the other, in your opinion, we're all ears. So that's it. And then with that, we'll move on to call to the public. Yes, sir.
Okay. A couple notes. So we'll try to keep it quick. So first of all, well, I understand, Julie, where you're coming from with the it's their land, they should be able to do what they want. Respectfully,
But whatever, it's fine. It
Oh,
was
sorry,
Dan's
Dan,
comment,
my apologies.
But go ahead. Regardless.
respectfully, I agree, but currently with our, we're not allowed to build a pond. You guys have a kennel ordinance, some people can't have dogs in any fashion that they want. There are many restrictions, thus zoning ordinances. Solar's no different. It's a decision of how to ordinance it, not a free-for-all. So to start with that, couple questions. First question. So Joe, you had mentioned that DTE has come and said, this is what we're willing to do. If you do this, we won't potentially fight you. We'll do that particular plan. What is different from our current draft ordinance versus DTE's verbal statement that they will accept and follow through with their plan?
Okay. I guess we're not supposed to turn it into a question-answer period, but it seems appropriate. This will be public, right? It came to the board, so if you want copies of what they handed us, you're welcome to have one. I don't want to try to go through it line by line.
Is there an overview, is it drastically different? Are we fighting over the height of the tree, or is it completely apples and oranges?
Honestly, I would have to go through it again and let go line up. Like, for example, I know there was modifications to how much they were doing inspections of drain tiles. There was the noise level was, again, I don't know if it was different from ours. It was lower than the state's requirement.
It was different from ours.
It was different from
ours. Very stringent.
So, well, it was 45. I don't know how much worse, lower you go. But, then,
Okay, fair enough. But if we can get that information.
It's still included, basically, like, if I'm not mistaken, like our original screening requirements, which I think were pretty exceptional, honestly. In our original ordinance, with the double staggered row of 6-foot minimum height trees, things like that, we're still in it. It was a 15-foot height, if I recall, maximum, with the panels vertical, versus the state, I think, is 25.
Not just the state, it was the recommended from the workable ordinance would be 25 as well.
Oh, really? Okay, see, yeah, theirs was like
Again,
15.
we'll look it up.
But again, yeah, so there'll be a copy available.
Okay.
You can get a copy.
So I can scan these in and put them on the website. I don't know if I can scan the maps.
We could probably ask for electronic copy.
Oh,
Is that,
okay.
On my computer.
Actually, we have
All
electronic
40
copy.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So you can.
Yes, I can.
So you can put them up there.
Okay.
That's absolutely fine.
Okay,
I mean, I don't have a right to tell you can or can't, it's FOIA-able, we give it to you, everybody can have access, so
Exactly.
Yeah.
put it online.
okay.
I
would
don't
put
know
it
that I would
online.
confuse it with all of them. Let's just put on their final.
Oh, I was gonna put the marked up so they can see how
That's
it's different.
confusing because
Oh.
it's not just their markups, that includes some of Mark's, the planning commission work markups. So the final one, the final copy that's clean is all of those changes.
The first document that we gave to the planning commission actually listed out the changes, so that might be helpful too. Like, you know, if there's, not the letter, but the next one that we, because this was the same stuff we provided to the planning commission.
Right.
But the second one actually kind of went through and just listed out what would need to be modified. But however,
Could you send that to me electronically, and I can, it won't be today or tomorrow, but hopefully Saturday I can put it on when I'm here working on election stuff, and put it on the website. So you want this final draft and what you're gonna send me, and then the maps. Any chance you could put that all in one? And I will, then I can just attach that and put it on the website?
Yep.
All right, thank you. Anybody else?
No one else? Follow
All
up.
right, if no one else wants to speak, go ahead.
Okay. All right, so, and not picking any energy company or anything, just in general. So if we did the ordinance that was acceptable today, what prevents any energy company from coming in tomorrow and saying, well, now we have the ability to go all the way up to whatever the state's rules are. So we don't want to do your ordinance anymore, it's not acceptable. So we've got this potential verbal agreement that will follow that if you modify. But they're not, no one is bound to that, either current energy company or future energy company. So why, then it becomes a thing of how expensive is it for the energy companies to take it to the Lansing board and how time consuming. And so it becomes a thing of, maybe it's still cheaper for the energy company to go to the current proposed ordinance than it is to fight with Lansing and delay their project by who knows how long. Maybe it gets tied up in court, maybe it doesn't. So that's the next thing. And then my final thing, sorry, I'll keep this one quick, is even if we went to a CREO, it's lining up to the state's current thing, right? Let's just assume there is no modified CREO. Let's throw that one out. So we go to the CREO, the only time that an energy company would still go to the state is if they want to break the state's rules and do something less restrictive or more lax than what the state currently says. So at that point, we get a seat at the table to argue for the state's rules, right? Am I interpreting this correctly?
That's my understanding.
Well, no, if it's a CREO, if we have a CREO, they're gonna come to us and they're gonna look for approval of their plan.
Okay.
If we approve their plan, then they're gonna get a blessing from the MPSC, I guess, really, and they're gonna move forward with it. If we deny their plan, then yes, they're just going straight to the MPSC and gonna go around us again.
So that's us denying it in its entirety, which we're not allowed to do. If we have a CREO, we
Well, we
can't.
can.
Like but the state's not gonna side with us. They're gonna side with their
Yeah,
plan.
that's
They
true.
make their plan. They're
We
gonna side
can
with
still deny it, it's just, it's not gonna win us anything, I mean.
Am I
What do you,
missing something?
just state your point for us.
Okay, so my point is, the state's not going to listen to us, even if we have a seat at the table, because if we're there, it's because we said we don't like the state's plan.
So are you
Or-
trying to say you don't think that there's
Well-
a necessity to have a CREO?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's what I thought, just state.
Put our ordinance out and make an energy company use the additional resources and delay in time to go and petition the state. Now, try to do the ordinance in something that's beneficial for everyone, and I think you guys are trying to do that.
So you're saying you would rather see a workable ordinance in place
Workable
versus
or
a CREO?
no CREO, and an ordinance that the planning commission thinks is best for Iosco Township residents, both people pro and against.
Okay.
It's gonna end up at the state regardless, whether we have an ordinance or we don't, or we accept the state's version. So put in something, and if an energy company won't work with that, then they can go to the state, which they're gonna do anyway.
Well, and again, to preface that, it wouldn't, if there's a workable ordinance, if there's an ordinance in place that somebody is willing to work with us on, then it would not go to the state.
He understands that.
Correct.
Okay.
But assume they could also, a different energy company to come in, or a different landowner petition, and say that this is no longer workable. So you either go to
That
the
is
state, or it's always gonna fall back to the state regardless.
That would be the fallback.
I just
Yes.
wanted to mention that even if we had a CREO that matched what the state said, there is no guarantee that the state wouldn't change what they say a year later, and then your CREO is already no good anyway. So if you're going to just be going willy-nilly, whatever the state says anyway, then we might as well have an ordinance that we feel is right for our township, because it's gonna go to the state anyway.
I also, we are so worried about spending $500, $1,000, and I think we should be responsible. But do you know how much the planning commission uses? Every time they have a meeting, they're emailing this and that, and I know they probably have to ask questions, but every time we send an email, that costs money too. So, you know, why can't we ask a lawyer or something? I mean, we're spending a ton of money elsewhere, and there's, personally, no offense to anybody in this room, but I don't think there's a lot of thought in some instances. Well, we just need to ask the planner. Yep, we just need to ask the planner. There's not a lot of, well, this is what I think makes sense, or a new idea or something like that. We just ask the planner. So I mean, and that costs money, so I don't understand why we're so hard up to spend money on a lawyer to talk to them about a CREO or what, you know. And I don't agree with the CREO at all, but why don't we ask questions? I just don't
I
understand.
think we're just struggling to figure out who the expert is, not, I think we decided that we would spend money on it. It was figuring out who truly is an expert.
Mhm.
Who do we get the information from? It wasn't about, because we,
With the least potential for bias.
yes, that's what we're trying to figure out. We agreed to spend money if needed. It was about who do we truly ask that's gonna have factual information, unbiased
But do you
factual
have to make a
information.
motion for that? Because I don't think,
No, Joe has a spending limit up to $1,000. I'm sorry, we did discuss that.
You
It
did,
just-
I know, but, you know,
Maybe it
then there was
wasn't clear.
motions, and then I don't know what
Yeah, we don't have to
We
motion
didn't.
for anything, because he doesn't have to. We made the motion years ago when Pete was still, that the supervisor could spend up to $1,000 without board approval.
And
I
then,
tried to get them up to 5, but
I'm not finished this yet, 2 seconds. I also said this at the planning commission meeting, but, you know, yet again, there's another ordinance that we might like to look at. I think the max fence is, for side and rear yard is 6 feet. I think we should be able to have like an 8-foot fence. And I don't think you should have to really pay money to come here to ask for an 8-foot fence. I mean, 6 foot, 8 foot, whatever. I'm just trying not to look out what might be outside my window in 9 months or 6 months. So I'd rather look at the fence. So, yeah. I know, I'm sorry. You're right, it has to be, maybe we need to have 20 foot fence. I don't know. I just want to, I'm short enough. It's
Thank
probably.
you. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
We've been here for a lot of meetings. You have a lot of information from DTE. They've told you a lot of stuff. They've got a guy in here from Chicago to give you some information. That's just one side. They've also sent you guys up to other areas to look at other sites to see how they're doing them. You're welcome, if you're bored this weekend, to drive up to Gladwin and see what the hillbillies did up there and see how that looks. There's standard fence along there. There's no trees. There's no anything. It wasn't DTE. It was another developer. DTE's got huge pockets. It's a great company. There's a lot of people that here that work at DTE. There's a lot of, hopefully there's some people in this room, other than me, that are invested in DTE. So I think it's a good possibility that they're going to be your best people to tell you what's really going to work and do it right. They're not out here to get anybody. They're just trying to develop some energy in the site and have it work. And I realize you guys have a lot on your heads. This is difficult. But my gosh, we've got to do something else to create some energy in this township.
Thank you. Yes.
I wasn't going to say anything. I think there's one thing that, there's so much information. I'm not an expert in it. I don't pretend to be one. I am more than happy to answer questions that I know answers to. And I get the looks, I get my pictures posted on Facebook. I just want to be very transparent. At the end of the day, we want to work with the township. We are willing to spend extra money to do things that are not required by the state. I am personally not a supporter of state siting. DTE did not push for state siting. We are developing projects in communities without state siting. And the information that we provided is because we do have a vested interest. We started working in this community with an ordinance that you guys had in place when we started signing land here. And we didn't know it was going to turn into this, and we don't like that it turns into this. And I know that everybody's can have a difference of opinion, I get that. The one thing that I want to remind you guys here, and I think it's important for people in this room to hear, your current ordinance is workable. The draft ordinance that you're working on is not in place yet. Regardless of state siting, there's still part of the law that stays intact. And what that means is whatever ordinance you vote on, either side, if somebody doesn't like it, if those who don't want it because they think it's too lenient, or those who don't want it because they think it's too stringent, or we won't be able to develop, the law is that they can put in a referendum. And if they put in a referendum, it will go to a May ballot vote. In that time, and I'm saying this because I'm being transparent, not because I'm trying to do a gotcha, because people can use this against us, but in that time, DTE could come in and submit an application under your old ordinance, because your old ordinance is technically in effect, okay? It's not like a township that had a restrictive ordinance first, because then it always reverts back to the ordinance you have in place now. So it would revert back unless you put in a moratorium. And legally, can you put in another moratorium? Nobody's going to sue you for it. So if you want to put in another moratorium, you can, so that a developer can't put in an application between November and May. But if you put in a moratorium, then you don't have a CREO. There's so many logistics. I don't disagree with some of your comments, guys. I don't think a CREO is strong enough. We don't want to use the sound limits. We want to put in screening. We are in it for the long haul. We can't walk away from the project, so we want to do screening. We don't want you to have to put up your own fence. We want to provide you with screening so that whether you'd like to look at it or not. So all this to say, if you put in something, anybody in this room, any resident can get enough signatures. It's not a ton of signatures that they need. And if they get the signatures to put it on the ballot vote, then you go back to your old ordinance or a moratorium. So you guys are stuck between a rock and a hard place no matter what you do. You can't win in this situation. Nobody's winning in this situation. And so I just wanted to say that because that law didn't change. Like with the CREO and everything else, that law doesn't change. So that's still something that somebody can do that can throw another monkey wrench into all of this and make it even more difficult for you guys. At the end of the day, we are willing to work with you. We are willing to figure this out. I know that's not what other people in this room want to hear. I can't change that. I just want you to know that in terms of expenses to go to the state, and it takes more time, they have a time limit they have to approve projects by. So there is timelines. They can't hold it out there. If we submit an application in November because you don't have a CREO, or you tell us to go to the MPSC, if you push us that direction, we do that. They have a time limit that they have to approve those applications then. The last thing I'll say, and I know I'm going on, but there is a lot of unknown, and it's going to be hard to find an expert, and you're right, and I appreciate you saying trying not to find a biased person, because you're going to have one group of attorneys that tell you you can do this and one group of attorneys that tell you you can't. A precedent has not been set, so that's the hard part too, because you don't know what the MPSC is going to do. So if we're going to build a project, we would like to work here, stay here, put in the screening, do better setbacks than what the state's going to do, give you better sound limits than what the state's going to do. And we don't want to go to the state, but of course, we may have to go that direction if you tell us that we can't work with you guys.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Last, I promise. And the paperwork
Hold
that,
on. Is there anybody else first?
okay.
All right, go
The paperwork that you have, Julie, will say the differences between what is on our draft and what is willing to work with, or no?
Ask that again?
The paperwork that will go up on the website, will that show the differences between the draft and what DTE is willing to work with?
I mean,
It will
if we put the marked up version on there too, you will see what was marked up in the ordinance. So, I mean, I guess you could put them both on.
I mean, maybe they're pretty insignificant, maybe they're major, but at this point, we don't know what they are.
And I'm more than happy to give my phone number if somebody really wants to ask me questions to understand what the differences are. What I don't want to do is give my phone number, so somebody can record me, put it on the internet and say I said something I didn't say.
Just a document that says, you know, this is what our draft ordinance is, it's 100 feet setback, whatever.
Part
It's
of the challenge
acceptable at
with the
75.
markup, part of the challenge with the marked up version is we didn't do all those markups. Some of those markups are done by the planner, so it's hard to tell which ones were done by us without explanation. I'm more than happy to explain it, but part of it, that's part of the reason that the markup is difficult to read, because you can't tell where DTE marked it up or where, because it was a draft, and so you can't tell who marked up which markups.
I mean, probably the cleanest way is still just looking at the current completed draft of the planning commission versus the information that DTE provided us and just comparing them.
And it wouldn't happen until next week, but I'm happy to highlight something. I'm happy to put together a document that actually makes it cleaner and highlight it. I'm not trying to hide anything. So I wouldn't be able to get that done until the beginning of next week, but I'm also happy to do that, to highlight the pieces that we are saying would need to be changed in order for us to actually build a project. So you just let me know what you want from me, I'll do it.
Did you not say that you were gonna send me something that specifically had the changes?
Yes, but that's just like in a bullet form, so I don't know if people will be able to, yes. But I'll send it to you, if you think it works, that's good too.
I was trying to figure out if the green is what marked it and the blue is what DTE did.
It's hard because when you do a new red line, so, because it's red line, right? So when you do a new red line, it changes colors. So if there was nothing in that paragraph, then it could be one color. And then if there was something in that paragraph that we marked up on top of the red line, it'll be a different color.
Gotcha.
It's even confusing for me, and I know what it is. I didn't do it, but I know what it is.
Anybody else? All right, I guess with that, we'd like a motion to adjourn.
I will move to adjourn. The second 3 p.m.
John, Murray, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all for coming.